Happy Sunday. Today I'm going to read a legend from Scotland of old. So, legends in Scotland are unique in that they are based on reality, they are truthful, and there are artifacts and other means that have shown that these legends are in fact based on truth. And so that's kind of cool. And so I got this book, Legends of Northeast Scotland. So I am of the Gordon clan of the Aberdeen and Aberdeenshire area in the Scottish Highlands. And so this book, it's the legends included were not written by Fenton Wyness. He was the one who transcribed them. So thank you for doing that, Fenton Wyness. And so the legend that I am reading today is of the Gordon clan. So, Edom O Gordon. Standing sentinel amid the wild, heather-clad hills of Upper Donside is Coragarf Castle, the scene of that grim tragedy so vividly and beautifully described in the ballad Edom O Gordon. The tragedy is true, but was but one incident in the long and bitter struggles between two great Aberdeenshire families, the Gordons and the Forbeses. But among the many gruesome and terrible outrages committed during the troubled times of the 16th century, it stands out as being the most awful and horrible. The castle of Coragarf was built as a hunting lodge for the Elphinstone family, who in 1507 were granted the forest of Coragarf by James IV. In the year 1561, however, it was acquired by John Forbes of Towie, who, with his family, settled down in the lonely glen, a bleak, almost uninhabited district, the sanctuary of deer and mountain birds. It was the summer of 1571, and John Forbes of Towie had left his wife Margaret and their family at Coragarf Castle, while he accompanied his kinsman, Lord Forbes, on a foray against their sworn enemies, the Gordons. All that summer, Margaret Gordon, her sister, the Lady Crawford, the young Laird Alexander, and the rest of the family enjoyed the beauties of the secluded glen. The wild hillsides, the swiftly flowing burns with their foaming cascades, the songs of the birds, and the gay flowers on the riverbank. Autumn followed and cast her rich mantle over the glen. The hills took on a deep purple hue, the trees became a brilliant yellow, while the hips ripened to a lustrous vermilion. Never had the glen seemed so beautiful and peaceful. October came, and the higher hills had their first dusting of snow. It was cold and damp, and the glen presented a grim and forbidding appearance. A message had come to the castle telling of a fierce and bloody encounter between the rival families at Tilliangus, and that a party of Gordons under the notorious Edom Gordon was ravaging the Forbeses' territory. The Gordons were a lawless family who had earned for themselves the name Gay Gordons, not gay, as it is sometimes spelt today, a word with a very different meaning. So Gay Gordons this isn't part of the story, Gay Gordons is G-E-Y. Since the Battle of Corrichie in 1562, when the old Earl of Huntly had been killed and his third son beheaded at Aberdeen, the Gordons had been on the side of Mary, Queen of Scots. Alexander, the second son, had been taken prisoner and convicted of treason, but later reprieved by the Queen, while Adam, the fourth son, had obtained pardon in consideration of his youth. It was an unfortunate day for the Forbeses when, by the Queen's clemency, Edom Gordon was pardoned, and as he proved to be the most bloodthirsty of the family, his many acts of cruelty and barbarity making the name Edom O Gordon dreaded throughout the country. It was this Gordon who now harried the territories of the Forbeses. Edom Gordon had two good reasons for thus ravaging the lands of the Forbeses. Firstly, there was the old family feud, an excellent excuse for any form of brutality. And secondly, There was the cause of the Queen, which legalized his actions, for the Forbeses were opposed to marry. When John Forbes of Towie left his wife and family at Corgarth Castle, he did so with every confidence, for apart from any sudden sally by roving bands of Caterans, which the building was well able to withstand, he did not anticipate any large-scale attack, for the castle was situated at the head of the Don Valley, and well out of the way of the conflicting families. As all the able-bodied men were soldiering, only the servants were left with his family. Such confidence, however, was Adam Gordon's opportunity. Early one morning, as the grey mists were lifting from the hills, the lookout in the Cape House of Corgarth observed a party of Gordons coming up the glen. The cry was raised, "The Gordons are coming!" There was much activity in the castle. The courtyard gate was made fast, the wooden ladder giving access to the castle doorway pulled up, the great studded door bolted and barred, and the massive iron yet swung in place and securely padlocked. The grim tower of Corgarth awaited attack. A short distance from the castle, the Gordons halted. Their leader, Captain Kerr, and 2 others advanced under the flag of truce, and when within hailing distance of the tower, called to the defenders that he came from Adam Gordon of Auchendown, and demanded that they surrender in the name of Queen Mary. There was a hurried consultation within the castle. Margaret Forbes, who, in the absence of her husband, assumed command of Corgarth, asked for 12 hours' respite to consider the proposal of surrender. This was granted, and Captain Kerr and his 2 companions withdrew, rejoining their party. It will never be known exactly what happened after this, or why the Gordons should have broken faith. At all events, they made a sudden rush at the castle, scaled the courtyard walls, piled brushwood, peats, and logs, and every available piece of inflammable material against the tower and set it alight. Soon, the entire building was a blazing inferno. The heat was terrific, for the pine logs were resinous and the peats were dry. The terrified screams of the trapped defenders could be heard above the crackling of the burning timber. For them, there was no escape. Every window in the tower, as was the practice in those days, was heavily barred on the outside by stout iron grills. The entire household, 27 in number, were doomed to perish. In the cold light of the following dawn, the charred and smouldering shell of Corgarth Castle presented a gruesome spectacle, and it was some time before anyone in the neighbourhood had courage enough to approach the blackened ruin, although the Gordons had marched away as soon as their foul work was done. The bodies of the unfortunate victims were taken to the kirkyard at Nether Towie and buried among the great lamentations of the whole countryside. In those days, however, there was little time for sorrow. The one thought was for revenge. It was hardly a month later when John, the master of the Forbes, received word that Adam Gordon was in Aberdeen. With all speed he made for the town. The 2 families met at the Crabstane, and a fierce and bloody battle ensued. Once more the Forbeses were defeated and obliged to retire. Little remains to be told. The persecution of the Forbeses continued for some time until the sudden death of Adam Gordon at Perth in 1580. Many years later, the castle of Corgarth was again in occupation by government forces during the 45. But the Forbeses never returned, for they built another castle at Towie. Corgarth has recently been restored, but Towie is in ruins, while the Crabstane in the Hard Gate at Aberdeen marks the site of the famous encounter. I guess that's what you get for being a traitor for your country, to your country. Yeah, so that is Edom O Gordon.